Starship moved forward. On July 24th, on its 13th flight, it deployed 20 next-generation Starlink satellites for the first time, and the ship came down in the Indian Ocean in the softest splashdown this program has ever had. And yet, SpaceX stock reached $112.12. That is roughly 17% below the IPO price of $135. Good morning. This is Ken. The technology moved. The market did not. Let me give you my conclusion up front. What the market may be pricing is not whether the rocket worked, but how long it takes for that success to turn into profit. That is a hypothesis, not a fact. Stay with me and check it against the evidence. Here is the order. What Flight 13 actually achieved? What is still unsolved? What Starship changes about Starlink? And what the market is really watching on August 4th. One thing before we start. The real focus of this sell-off sits outside the rocket. First, give the success its due. On July 24th, Flight 13 lifted off from Starbase in Texas, second flight of the new V3 vehicle. All 33 Raptor engines lit. 3 things went right. 1. 20. Next generation. Starlink V3 satellites were deployed for the first time. The previous 12 flights carried mass simulators or non-functional payloads. These were real, and SpaceX says it communicated with every one of them over radio and laser links. 2. A Raptor engine was relit in space. That sounds small. It is not. Coming down where you intend to come down requires lighting an engine again outside the atmosphere. 3. The ship made the softest splashdown in the program's history. On earlier flights, the vehicle burned or broke apart at the water. This one stayed essentially intact and floating, and it was still floating on July 29th. That gave SpaceX its first clear look at a heat shield that had not been destroyed. That said, I am not going to call this a complete success. The Super Heavy booster ascended and separated cleanly, but during the landing burn, only 5 of the planned 13 engines lit. It hit the Gulf hard and the booster was lost. And one thing is worth clearing up now. Those 20 satellites did not reach a normal orbit. This was a suborbital flight, and the satellites re-entered and burned up exactly as planned. What was tested is whether the deployment mechanism works. This was not the start of commercial service. So when does this success actually increase SpaceX's profit? This is the most important part of today's video. Starship is not a product SpaceX sells. Look next to it at Starlink. Starlink is the revenue engine with a subscriber base reported in the 10 billion range. But growing it means launching satellites continuously. Today, that work is carried by Falcon 9. Here is what Starship changes. Carry more satellites per launch at lower cost, and the same money builds the network faster and bigger. So Starship is a device that changes Starlink's transport cost and deployment speed. Judge the rocket on its own and you cannot measure the business value. To measure this success, you have to look at a different business. So when does that device start to matter? Line up the causation one step at a time. The technology succeeds. It becomes repeatable as an operation. The scale of deployment rises. That turns into revenue. Revenue shows up in the financials. And only then does the market's valuation change. Flight 13 reached step 1 of those 6. Elon Musk has said SpaceX will attempt a tower catch on Flight 14. That is where the gap comes from. A technical success is confirmed the moment it is news. Getting it into revenue and profit takes years of operational maturity and scale. The market is putting a price on that waiting time. That is the hypothesis. But that alone does not explain this sell-off. There is a second factor, and this one is documented. On August 4th, SpaceX reports earnings for the first time as a public company after the US close. The problem is the date itself. SpaceX's lockup, the period where insiders cannot sell, releases in stages. And the trigger for the first stage was the first earnings report. 2 trading days later, starting August 6th, 20% of eligible shares become sellable. That is up to 911.5 million shares. Put that in scale. Reporting suggests that single release alone frees more shares than the entire June IPO by a factor of about 1.45, and the IPO floated less than 5% of shares outstanding, a large supply arriving into a small float. There was a condition for another 10% if the stock had traded more than 30% above $135. It did not, so that tranche stays locked. Musk's own stake and key executive holdings are locked until June 2027. So part of the reason the technical success did not move the stock sits right here. A market waiting on earnings is also looking at the supply arriving 2 days after them. At the same time, the underlying business is not weakening. On July 29th, the US Space Force ordered $1.6 billion of launches from SpaceX. 18 Falcon 9 missions through the end of 2027, carrying satellites that detect and track airborne targets. Reporting puts SpaceX's defense awards this year at least $7 billion, but that does not make the stock cheap. The strength of the business and whether today's price is right are two different arguments. Let me pull it together. The facts. Flight 13 deployed 20 Starlink V3 satellites for the first time, relit an engine in space, and made the softest splashdown yet. The Super Heavy booster was lost. Against an IPO price of $135, the stock reads $112.12. Earnings land August 4th, and up to 911.5 million shares unlocked 2 days later. 3 things are hypotheses: that the main cause of the decline is time to monetization. How much of it is earnings caution versus the lockup? And how far Starship's success actually improves future margins? Here are 6 things to check on August 4th, when full Starlink V3 deployment begins. What the next stage is for Starship. Starlink's revenue growth and margins. Capital spending and cash burn. When the defense contracts reach the numbers, and how the company addresses the supply picture. I am not going to call this bullish or bearish. What today shows is that technical success and equity valuation run on different clocks. A rocket succeeds in a day. Business numbers move over years. The market is pricing that gap. Living ahead of the future is not about celebrating a launch or panicking at a drawdown. It is about understanding in order when and how technology turns into money. After the August 4th report, I will check these 6 items one by one. That is it for today. If this was useful, a thumbs up really does help the channel. I cover Tesla and SpaceX from an owner's seat here in Japan, and I post new videos here regularly. If you are not subscribed yet, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and let's keep enjoying life with these machines.
Before we wrap up, let me take a moment to introduce myself. I drive a Tesla Model Y, and at home, I've installed a Tesla Powerwall, so I actually charge my car with solar energy. I truly believe Tesla is shaping the future, and that's why I share the latest news and insights here on this channel. I'm from Japan, but I want to connect with Tesla fans all around the world. That's why I also create an English version of my videos. YouTube now lets you switch the audio into your own language, so you can enjoy it in whatever language you prefer. Most of all, I'd love to connect with Tesla fans everywhere so we can support Tesla together. I also share updates on X, so feel free to follow me there and let's connect. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.